Laurent Gbagbo has been acquitted today of all charges by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He had been charged with crimes against humanity in connection with violence following a disputed election in 2010. Post-election violence left at least 3,000 people dead. Gbagbo was captured in 2011 in a presidential palace bunker by United Nations and French-backed forces who supported his rival, now President Alassane Ouattara. Prosecutors said Gbagbo had clung to power by all means after he had been defeated in that election. But judges said today the prosecutors failed to satisfy the burden of proof to the requisite standard.
All charges against Mr. Laurent Gbagbo and Mr.
Our correspondent in the Belgian capital, Brussels, Jack Parrok, is on the line for us now. Jack, good evening to you. Did the decision come as a surprise for most people?
Well, I think it certainly was a shock to the extent that the judges threw this case out. We have seen some recent acquittals at the International Criminal Court. Kenyatta, the Kenyan president, his case was ended, and we also saw the conviction of Jean-Pierre Bemba from the DRC, the former DRC vice president, overturned just at the end of last year. So acquittals have been coming thick and fast, but I think there was some shock that this happened so strongly after 7 years of ongoing trial. Now, the case has been not only thrown out, but in fact they say that there might not be crimes against humanity charges in existence. That's not to say that the 3,000 people that were killed in the post-election violence and the 150,000 people that were displaced by that violence weren't victims of those crimes. But essentially the ICC isn't sure that they were coordinated in any way, and certainly that Laurent Gbagbo and his co-defendant, the youth leader Charles Goudet, that they were in any way responsible for inciting that violence.
I imagine that there's going to be huge implications for the ICC, as you say. It's had a bit of a difficult track record over the last little while. Are you expecting more criticism for the ICC, considering particularly that in Africa there's been strong criticism of some of the cases that it's prosecuted? This is going to strengthen its critics and perhaps weaken its allies.
Certainly, the Office of the Prosecutor will see this as an embarrassment and a real hurdle, because imagine the people that were called to testify in this case that had travelled perhaps from the Ivory Coast to The Hague to testify against somebody that they believed to, be the perpetrator of crimes against their families, for instance. They will perhaps see the ICC as an institution now unable to bring those people to justice. Conversely, however, there have been some ideas and some suggestions that essentially the ICC will simply say that the judges have not been presented by the prosecutor with strong enough evidence, and that makes the judges and proves that the judges are independent, impartial, and not trying to go after African leaders, as some on the African continent have said. Now, these cases, most of them, were started by the former prosecutor of the ICC, Luis Moreno Ocampo, who was often accused of going after the man and not building enough of a case against some of these people, and that the current prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, has had to essentially deal with the cases that were handed to her, and that the cases that she has put together and started might have more meat in them, and that her office might be able to get more convictions. Having said that, within the year or so, she'll be gone and replaced.
In the meantime, of course, there's Laurent Gbagbo himself, the former president of Côte d'Ivoire. As I understand it, he hasn't actually been released yet. What are people there waiting for?
Well, the prosecution gets its point to appeal, and the judges agreed that he should be held in detention until that prosecution appeal is followed through. That is due course, that is due process, and for him, he'll want to do that because he wants to know that once he's released, he doesn't have to go back into that detention centre that he's been in for over 7 years now.
And then when we go through the judgment, and I imagine that legal academics are going to be looking at it very closely over the next little while, is it possible to say where the case actually fell apart, where the prosecution got it wrong?
Simply, most legal experts have been saying, actually, sort of in the backdoor corridors, that this case just did not have the quantity of evidence that it needed. There was not enough done on the ground in the Côte d'Ivoire at the time that the case was brought. And simply, as I said, that the former prosecutor Ocampo simply sort of wanted to prove that the guilt of the man would show that there was a sort of case to answer. That was what he was, many in the sort of international justice community accuse him of. He will obviously disagree with that, but that is a suggestion, and that there just hasn't been enough meat to this case. But it has managed to go on for a long time now, but it is a really significant acquittal. They've thrown it out even before it even got to the stage where judges were to decide whether to acquit or to convict. It's a no case to answer motion that the defence brought, and it's been upheld by the judges.
Jack Parrok in Brussels tonight. Thank you very much indeed. There'll be more updates, of course, coming through from there over the next little while. It's a peace.